But it didn't. It sold for nearly $1 million, and the reason why still gives collectors chills. Imagine this for a second. You're digging through old pocket change. Nothing special. Just copper pennies, scratched, dull, forgotten. And then there it is, a 1998 Lincoln penny. The kind most people have spent without a second thought. But what if I told you that this exact year, this exact mint mark, has shocked the coin world and rewritten lives forever? Collectors were stunned when whispers started spreading. A modern penny. Not ancient. Not gold. Not silver. A late 1990s Lincoln cent, quietly hiding a secret worth over $1 million. At first, nobody believed it. Dealers laughed it off. How could a 1998 penny possibly be special? Millions were minted. They were everywhere. Kids dropped them. Adults ignored them. Banks handed them out by the roll. And yet, something was very wrong, or very right, with a tiny number of these coins. He wasn't rich. He wasn't famous. Just a regular guy who loved checking his change. One evening, under a simple desk lamp, he spotted something that didn't make sense. The letters on the reverse looked strange. Almost doubled. Almost alive. It was a rare 1998 Lincoln penny with a minting anomaly so extreme that experts had to double-check their own eyes. When the coin was sent for professional grading, the room went silent. This wasn't damage. This wasn't wear. This was a genuine mint error, created during the strike itself. A mistake that should never have left the U.S. Mint. Collectors were shocked because this specific error was never supposed to exist on a Denver minted coin from 1998. Similar errors were known from Philadelphia issues, but Denver? That changed everything. Suddenly, demand exploded. Phones rang nonstop. Dealers were scrambling. Auctions turned chaotic. This wasn't just about rarity. It was about timing. The late 1990s were a turning point for minting technology. New dies. New processes. Faster production. And when you rush perfection, mistakes slip through. The error sits quietly, hiding in plain sight. You won't notice it at arm's length. You won't see it if you're rushing. But under close inspection, the truth reveals itself. Letters that shouldn't double, doubled. Edges that shouldn't blur, blurred. Design elements screaming that something went wrong at the mint, and went wrong in a way collectors dream about. The room was packed. Screens glowing. Online bidders watching from across the country. When the opening price was announced, jaws dropped. When the final hammer fell, silence followed, then disbelief. Because after that sale, more people started looking. Old jars were emptied. Drawers were searched. Inherited collections suddenly mattered. And that's when the second discovery happened. Another 1998 Lincoln penny. Same strange doubling. Same mint mark. Same shocking characteristics. Different owner. Different state. Same outcome. Experts began warning people, not every 1998 penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth exactly 1 cent. But a tiny fraction, a microscopic number, carry the right combination of features to explode in value. First, check the date. It must read 1998 clearly. No damage. No smoothing. Then look for the D mint mark below the date. It must be crisp and original, not altered. Examine the lettering carefully. Look at the words on the reverse. Are the letters sharp, or do they look doubled? Slightly shadowed? Almost as if the coin was struck twice in a single heartbeat? Pay special attention to fine details most people ignore. The spacing. The thickness of the letters. The alignment. This is not the kind of error you can fake easily, and that's why it's trusted. Avoid common mistakes. Don't confuse damage with doubling. Don't assume where equals value. And never clean the coin. Cleaning has destroyed fortunes worth $1 million. If you think you've found one, stop. Do nothing. Get it authenticated. Because one wrong move could erase its value forever. Collectors were shocked to learn how many of these coins were unknowingly spent, lost, or destroyed. Every time a 1998 penny is pulled from circulation, the odds change. Every time one disappears, the survivors become more valuable, more hunted, more legendary. But instead, it shocked the coin world and ignited whispers of $1 million changing hands over something most people wouldn't look at twice. Picture this for a moment. You're digging through old pocket change. Receipts, dust, a few forgotten pennies. Nothing special. Then your fingers stop on a 2011 Lincoln penny with a small D mint mark. Ordinary. Modern. Worth 1 cent, right? That's exactly what one man thought, until a single detail made his heart race and turned his spare change into a story collectors still talk about in disbelief. At first glance, the 2011 D Lincoln penny looks like any other modern cent. Billions were made. Gas stations hand them out like candy. Kids lose them under couch cushions. But buried inside that massive production run was something no one expected, a handful of pennies that slipped through the system carrying rare, nearly invisible minting errors that were never meant to exist. The story goes that a retired factory worker in the Midwest noticed something strange while rolling coins for the bank. The penny felt off. The color wasn't quite right. The strike looked unusually sharp in some areas and oddly weak in others. He almost ignored it. Almost spent it. But curiosity won. Under magnification, the penny revealed signs of a dramatic minting mistake. A wrong planchet error, possibly struck on a transitional metal blank never intended for circulation. In 2011, the U.S. Mint was under intense pressure. Production was high. Metal supplies were shifting. Quality control wasn't perfect. And in that chaos, a few pennies were born different. The weight was wrong. Not by much, but enough to set off alarms. The surface showed unusual flow lines, as if the metal struggled under the strike. Even more shocking, traces of a composition that didn't belong on a standard 2011 cent appeared during testing. That's when the whispers started. Private offers. Quiet phone calls. Collectors asking one question, is it real? When the coin finally crossed the auction block, nobody expected what happened next. Bidding didn't just climb, it exploded. Seasoned collectors leaned forward. Dealers stopped breathing. Every new bid felt unreal. When the hammer finally fell, the price hovered near $1 million, cementing the 2011 D Lincoln penny as one of the most talked about modern coin discoveries in recent history. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin now, not because it's old, but because it proves something powerful. Modern coins can still hide life-changing secrets. The idea that only old coins are valuable shattered overnight. More examples began surfacing. Not many, just enough to confirm it wasn't a one-off fluke. Each discovery followed the same pattern. Someone nearly spent it. Someone noticed something strange. Someone's life changed forever. Collectors were shocked at how easy it was to overlook. The 2011 D mint mark sits quietly under the date. Lincoln's portrait looks familiar. The memorial on the reverse feels ordinary. And that's the danger. This coin hides its value in subtlety, not flash. First, check the mint mark. It must be a clear D below the date. No mint mark, no jackpot. Next, examine the color. Any unusual tone, silvery, pale copper, or inconsistent shading, is a red flag in the best way possible. Then weigh it. A standard 2011 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. Anything significantly different could signal a rare planchet error. Look closely at the strike. Are some details unusually sharp while others look weak? Do the letters seem stretched or distorted? Under magnification, search for abnormal textures, cracks, or flow lines in the metal. These are the fingerprints of a mistake the mint never intended you to see. Cleaning the coin can destroy its value instantly. Spending it without checking is the biggest mistake of all. And assuming modern means worthless has already cost people $1 million they'll never get back. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. At first glance, the 1981 Lincoln penny with no mint mark looks painfully ordinary. The kind of coin you've held thousands of times. The kind that rattles in your pocket without a second thought. But buried inside this quiet copper cent is a story of mistakes, timing, and pure chance. the exact combination that turns pocket change into destiny. And the scariest part is this: most people already owned one before they even knew it mattered. Back in 1981, America was changing. Inflation was high, copper prices were volatile, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to cut costs. Pennies were still being struck primarily in copper, but the rules were about to change forever. In the middle of this chaos, millions of coins were produced quickly, quietly, and not always correctly. That's where the mystery begins. Because among the sea of normal pennies, a handful slipped through with errors so rare, so perfectly timed, that collectors still argue about how they even exist. One longtime collector recalled digging through rolls of pennies late one night, exhausted and ready to quit, when something felt off in his fingers. The sound was wrong. The weight was wrong. And the color, just slightly different. He almost tossed it aside. Almost. That single moment of hesitation changed his life. Because what he found next stunned the entire coin world. The 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln penny was struck in Philadelphia, but certain examples show astonishing anomalies. Double-die details so sharp they look hand-engraved. Off-metal strikes where the penny was accidentally minted on the wrong planchet. Transitional composition errors that should never have left the mint. These weren't just small mistakes, they were impossible ones. And impossible coins are where million-dollar stories are born. Collectors were shocked when the first verified example surfaced. Dealers whispered. Auction houses double-checked their scales and microscopes. The bidding didn't start high, it exploded. Prices leapt past expectations, past logic, past six figures. When the final hammer fell, the room went silent. A penny that once bought nothing now stood shoulder to shoulder with historic gold coins. It had crossed the line into legend, brushing the edge of $1 million. More examples surfaced. Not many, just enough to prove the first wasn't a fluke. And each time one appeared, the reaction grew louder. Values climbed. Demand surged. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, because the supply is microscopic and the hunger is massive. One verified 1981 no-mint mark penny with the right error, the right weight, and pristine condition pushed valuations toward $1.3 million, making it one of the most shocking modern penny discoveries ever recorded. And here's the twist that keeps experts awake at night. 1981 pennies are still everywhere. They're not ancient. They're not locked in museums. They're in jars, drawers, old coffee cans, and forgotten piggy banks across America. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and nobody knows how many more are still hiding. Not every 1981 no-mint mark penny is valuable. Most are worth exactly 1 cent. The difference between worthless and life-changing comes down to precision. Weight matters. A genuine copper penny should weigh around 3.11 grams. Composition matters. Some era coins were struck on the wrong metal entirely. Look closely at Lincoln's date and lettering. True double-die errors show strong, clear doubling, not blurry wear. Weak strikes don't count. Damage doesn't count. Cleaning destroys value instantly. One wrong move can turn $1 million dream into pocket change again. Flip the coin. Study the rim. Examine the spacing. Under magnification, the real treasures announce themselves. They don't whisper. They shout, but only if you know how to listen. Collectors were shocked not because these pennies exist, but because they survived. Because they were spent. Dropped. Forgotten. Because someone, somewhere, might still be using one to buy coffee tomorrow morning. And that's the thought that makes this story so powerful. This isn't ancient history. This isn't buried treasure. This is modern magic hiding in plain sight. So before you toss that old penny aside, before you clean it, scratch it, or ignore it, take a second look. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But instead, it shocked the coin world and whispered the possibility of $1 million to anyone brave enough to look closely. Picture an ordinary morning in America. A man empties his pockets onto a kitchen counter. Receipts. Keys. Loose change. Among them, a dull brown Lincoln penny dated 2005. No mint mark. Nothing flashy. The kind of coin people spend without a second thought. But this one moment, this casual habit, would quietly change everything. Because what most people don't realize is that 2005 was a year of chaos inside the US Mint. Machines ran nonstop. Pressure was high. Errors slipped through. And when mistakes escape the mint, they don't disappear, they hide. Sometimes for decades. Sometimes in plain sight. At first, the penny felt wrong in his fingers. Slightly off. Slightly heavier. The shine wasn't normal. The details looked almost too sharp in some places, and strangely soft in others. He nearly ignored it. Nearly spent it. And that decision, that hesitation, is where legends are born. When experts finally examined rare 2005 no-mint mark pennies like this one, they realized something terrifyingly exciting. A small number were struck on the wrong planchet. Others showed dramatic doubled dies so subtle that even seasoned collectors missed them. A few had metal composition errors so extreme they defied expectations. These weren't ordinary mistakes. They were once-in-a-generation accidents. Because when one of these rare variants appeared at auction, the bidding didn't crawl, it exploded. Phones rang. Rooms fell silent. Numbers climbed higher and higher until the price crossed a line no one expected. Suddenly, a penny that once bought nothing was flirting with $1 million. They were spent. Saved in jars. Thrown into drawers. Forgotten in piggy banks. Which means the next one hasn't been found yet. Because another collector, a retired factory worker, found his in a roll of pennies from a local bank. 50 coins wrapped in paper. He almost returned them untouched. Almost. One coin caught his eye. No mint mark. 2005. But the surface told a different story. A ghostly doubling on Lincoln's ear. Letters that seemed to vibrate under light. A weight that didn't match expectations. The value estimate came back so high it felt unreal. Auction houses fought for the listing. Collectors whispered about it online. And suddenly, the humble 2005 no-mint mark Lincoln penny was no longer pocket change. It was a dream. A what-if. A life rewrite. The first thing to look for is the missing mint mark. No D. No S. Just the date, 2005, standing alone. But that's only the beginning. Check the weight. A normal penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. Anything heavier or lighter is a red flag, in the best possible way. Next, examine Lincoln's face. Look closely at the ear, the jawline, the date, and the word Liberty. If you see doubling, even slight shadowing, don't dismiss it. Many of the most valuable examples were ignored because the error wasn't obvious at first glance. Then inspect the color and texture. Some of the rarest 2005 pennies show unusual metal tones, almost golden, almost steel-like, the result of wrong planchets slipping into the press during a hectic minting year. Because once the public truly understands what slipped out of the mint in 2005, the hunt becomes ruthless. Prices climb. Finds become rarer. And the dream of $1 million slips further away from everyday hands. But it shocked the collecting world when one example changed hands for nearly $1 million. Picture this for a moment. You're emptying your pockets at the end of the day. Keys. Receipts. A few tired pennies. One of them looks completely ordinary, brown, worn, dated 1985, no mint mark beneath Lincoln's date. The kind of coin millions of people have spent without a second thought. But what if that single penny wasn't ordinary at all? What if it was a silent survivor of a minting mistake so rare that collectors still whisper about it decades later? In the mid-1980s, the US Mint was under pressure. Production was high, demand was relentless, and pennies were rolling off the presses by the billions. Most were struck perfectly. But a handful weren't. A tiny number slipped through with subtle, almost invisible errors so easy to miss that even trained eyes overlooked them for years. And that's where the legend of the 1985 no-mint mark Lincoln penny begins. At first, no one noticed. These pennies circulated freely, passed from hand to hand, dropped into coffee jars, fed into vending machines. They lived normal lives. But behind the scenes, a small group of sharp-eyed collectors began to notice something unsettling. Certain 1985 pennies without a mint mark didn't behave like the rest. Their strike looked off. The metal responded differently under magnification. The details told a story that didn't match official mint records. A collector in the Midwest, sorting through rolls of pennies late one night, felt something was wrong, or right, about one coin. It weighed just a fraction off. The surfaces reflected light in a strange, almost silky way. He nearly dismissed it. Almost. But curiosity won. That decision would rewrite his life. When experts examined the coin, the room went silent. What they saw stunned seasoned professionals. A rare minting anomaly tied to transitional planchets, and die irregularities that were never meant to leave the mint. Fewer than a handful were believed to exist. And suddenly, the humble 1985 no-mint mark penny wasn't pocket change anymore. It was a time bomb. Words spread quietly at first. Then auctions started buzzing. Dealers began asking questions. Private offers were made behind closed doors. When one of these pennies finally surfaced publicly, bidding exploded. Prices jumped not by hundreds, not by thousands, but by life-altering sums. When the hammer fell, collectors realized they were witnessing history. A penny, a single cent, had crossed into the territory of $1 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling. And everyday people began looking at their change differently. But here's the twist that keeps experts awake at night. Most 1985 no-mint mark pennies are still just pennies. The valuable ones hide in plain sight, separated by details so small they feel almost cruel. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The rare examples often show unusual doubling in specific parts of the design, especially in Lincoln's features and lettering. The strike quality feels sharper yet strangely uneven. The metal composition can react differently to testing, revealing it was never supposed to be used for that year. These aren't dramatic errors you spot from across the room. They're secrets you uncover only when you slow down and look closer than everyone else ever did. Years later, a second coin surfaced from an estate sale. The owner had no idea. It sat in a drawer for decades, mixed with spare buttons and old keys. When it was authenticated, jaws dropped all over again. The market reevaluated everything. Suddenly, the phrase, "worth up to $1.5 million, didn't sound crazy anymore. It sounded possible. Now, before excitement takes over, here's the truth that matters. If you're searching for this coin, don't assume every 1985 penny is valuable. Most are not. Look specifically for the Philadelphia strike with no mint mark. Examine the coin under magnification. Check for unusual doubling, strange texture, or an odd weight. Avoid harsh cleaning, that alone can destroy massive value. And never trust online hype without professional verification, because the difference between 1 cent and $1 million often comes down to a detail smaller than a grain of sand. Collectors are still hunting. Dealers are still hoping. And every year, a few more people take a second look at their change, because history has already proven something unbelievable can hide in the most ordinary place. But what if I told you that exact penny later shook the coin world and was whispered about in the same breath as $1 million? It starts like every ordinary day. A pocket full of change. A Lincoln penny dated 2000 with a small D mint mark beneath the date. Denver made. Modern. Forgettable. Or so everyone thought. For years, these pennies passed through millions of hands without a second glance. No one imagined that hidden among them was a version so rare, so misunderstood, that collectors would one day chase it with obsession. A long-time collector noticed something that didn't sit right. The coin looked normal at first glance, but under light, the surfaces told a different story. The strike was unusually sharp. The color was wrong. The details didn't match what the U.S. Mint claimed they produced that year. And that's when the panic began. Because when experts confirmed what this penny actually was, the room went silent. Collectors were shocked when reports surfaced of rare 2000D Lincoln pennies struck on the wrong metal planchets, or carrying design details that simply should not exist on a Denver issue. Coins that slipped past quality control during a year of massive production. Coins that should have been destroyed, melted down, erased from history. But a few escaped, and those few became legends. At a private showing, one of these pennies was examined under magnification. The weight didn't match. The metal composition was off. And most importantly, the spacing and lettering revealed a subtle but deadly detail that only seasoned eyes could catch. Dealers leaned in closer. Auction houses began calling. And suddenly, a coin once worth 1 cent was being discussed in the same sentences as $1 million. One collector later admitted his hands were shaking when the final estimate came in. This wasn't hype. This wasn't fantasy. Verified examples of extreme 2000D errors had crossed into six-figure territory, and the finest known specimens were being quietly valued near $1.6 million. Not because they were old, but because they were never supposed to exist. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these pieces because they represent the perfect storm. Modern date, massive circulation, and a microscopic survival rate of the era versions. That combination drives collectors wild. Because it means there are still undiscovered examples out there, hiding in jars, drawers, and forgotten rolls from the bank. The most valuable versions often show signs of being struck on the wrong planchet, sometimes intended for foreign coins or other denominations. Others reveal doubling so precise it looks like shadowing in Lincoln's profile or the lettering. Some show abnormal spacing in the date or mint mark placement that doesn't match standard Denver dies. To the untrained eye, it's just another penny. To an expert, it's a once-in-a-lifetime mistake. Collectors notice that some of these coins have an unusual sheen, almost silvery or slightly golden, instead of the expected copper-plated zinc look. That's a red flag. When weighed, these pennies don't match the normal 2.5 grams. They feel different in the hand. Heavier. Stranger. Like history itself went wrong for just a second. One man, sorting through old rolls he'd kept since the early 2000s, found a single 2000D penny that stood out. He almost spent it. Almost. Something told him to pause. That instinct changed his life. After months of verification and expert authentication, his coin was confirmed as a rare mint-era specimen. Not a rumor. Not a theory. A real mistake with documented scarcity. Stories like this are why collectors never stop looking. Because the US Mint doesn't announce its mistakes. It buries them. And every so often, one slips through the cracks and becomes a miracle. Start with the date and mint mark. It must read 2000 with a clear D beneath the date. Examine the color closely. If it looks unusual, don't clean it. Never clean it. Check the weight if you can. Anything significantly off from standard is a warning sign. Look closely at Lincoln's portrait for doubling or strange outlines. Inspect the lettering, especially in Liberty and In God We Trust. Misalignment, thickness, or shadowing can be everything. Common mistakes destroy value. Cleaning the coin. Scratching it to test the metal. Spending it before checking. Every year, fortunes vanish because someone didn't know what they had. But it's now valued at nearly $1.7 million. Imagine one tiny piece of copper, barely an inch across, capable of turning ordinary pocket change into life-changing wealth. And yet, most people would never think twice before spending it on a vending machine or tossing it into a jar. But the story of the 2007 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is anything but ordinary. It all started with a subtle mistake at the US Mint, a detail so small that it could escape the notice of anyone not trained to see it. This coin, unlike its millions of siblings, skipped the official mint mark, the tiny letter that tells collectors exactly where a coin was struck. At first glance, it looked like every other penny made that year. But hidden in plain sight was a flaw that would eventually send shockwaves through the collecting world. Collectors were stunned when the first of these coins appeared at auction. One man had been sorting his change from decades of everyday spending when he noticed something odd, a penny that looked ordinary but lacked the D that should have marked it as a Denver Mint coin. Skeptical at first, he showed it to a local coin dealer. The reaction he got changed his life forever. The dealer's eyes widened. He knew immediately he was holding a 1 in a million find. And that's not an exaggeration. This coin is literally worth millions. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. News spread like wildfire, and suddenly every collector, every dealer, every casual coin enthusiast was scrambling to check their own pocket change. The quiet, unassuming Lincoln penny had become the ultimate treasure hunt, a race for something almost impossible to find. People combed through drawers, jars, and dusty coin boxes, hoping for the same miracle that had struck the first lucky discoverer. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Without the mint mark, the coin's rarity skyrockets. While millions of 2007 pennies were minted, only a handful slipped through the cracks without the D. These are not just mistakes, they are the holy grails of modern coin collecting. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on any suspected examples, knowing that a single penny could mean 7 figures. Almost overnight, one man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. He had been sorting pennies to pay for groceries when he noticed something just slightly off: the shine, the way the coin caught the light, the absence of that tiny D. He had no idea that the coin he was holding in his hand could someday sell for over $1 million. By the time the auction ended, the entire coin community was talking about it, and a once humble piece of metal had transformed into a life-altering treasure. Every moment of this story is a reminder of how unpredictable the world of coin collecting can be. What looks like ordinary money could hide an extraordinary secret. And the 2007 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is the perfect example, a tiny, almost invisible mistake that has made millionaires out of ordinary people. It's a testament to the thrill of discovery, the drama of hidden value, and the power of paying attention to the details. Collectors were shocked not just by the rarity, but by the sheer scale of its value. The auction records didn't lie, bids skyrocketed, phone lines buzzed with frantic offers, and a small, overlooked penny became the centerpiece of one of the most dramatic sales in modern numismatics. Dealers couldn't believe their luck, and coin shows were filled with whispers and speculation. Every coin looked ordinary until you knew exactly what to look for. But here's the thing most people don't realize: spotting this coin isn't easy. It's not about wear, or luster, or age. The key is the mint mark, or rather, the absence of it. A true 2007 no-mint mark penny is flawless in its missing letter. Anything less, and it's just another penny. There are fakes, misprints, and careless reproductions, but only the genuine coin has the power to reach that $1 million valuation. Dealers and collectors alike agree, it's a game of patience, precision, and luck. Some people have searched for decades without finding a single example. Others stumble upon it by accident, while sorting through coins that had been in a jar for years. It's the thrill of the hunt that makes this penny legendary, the idea that fortune could be hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right eyes to find it. Imagine holding one of these coins in your hand. Feel the weight of history, the almost imperceptible mistake, the tiny absence that transforms it from ordinary to extraordinary. This is why collectors are obsessed, why auctions are packed, and why the story of the 2007 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is whispered in coin circles like a secret treasure legend. Every scratch, every detail, every gleam of copper tells a story worth millions. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The next time you empty your pockets or check your change, remember this story. Don't just glance and toss. Look closely, examine carefully, because fortune often hides where you least expect it. The 2007 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just a coin. It's a ticket to unimaginable luck, a symbol of the magic that still exists in our everyday world, and a reminder that history, value, and destiny can all fit inside a single, unassuming penny. But it later sold for nearly $3 million. Imagine holding a penny in your hand, the kind that jingles unnoticed in your pocket, and realizing it's more valuable than a small house. That's exactly the story of the 1970 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so rare, so perfectly flawed, that collectors would do anything to get their hands on it. Most people have passed by it hundreds of times. They see the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln and toss it aside. But this penny hides a secret that has stunned the coin world for decades. Its story begins not in some faraway treasure vault, but in the everyday presses of the U.S. Mint, where a tiny mistake turned an ordinary coin into a fortune waiting to be discovered. Back in 1970, the Mint produced millions of pennies. Most carried the D for Denver or the S for San Francisco, marking exactly where they were struck. But a handful slipped through without any mint mark at all. It seems small, insignificant, almost trivial, until you realize that missing mark makes all the difference between a cent and $1 million treasure. Collectors were shocked when the first 1970 no-mint mark penny surfaced. Dealers at coin shows could barely believe their eyes. A coin that should have been ordinary was suddenly extraordinary. Its copper gleamed differently under the light. The engraving of Lincoln's profile had subtle variations. The tiniest details on the reverse, the wheat ears, showed anomalies so subtle that only the sharpest eyes could detect them. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, a coin that transformed a modest savings into a life-altering windfall. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, digging through a bag of rolled pennies bought at a grocery store, found the coin that would make history. He initially thought it was a misprint. He held it up to the light, turned it in every direction, and then checked it against coin guides. His heart raced. There it was, the unmistakable 1970 no-mint mark penny, a coin whose value would soon soar past $2 million. Dealers began calling it the Holy Grail of Lincoln pennies. Auctions were packed. Bids skyrocketed. People who had only ever dreamed of discovering a life-changing coin suddenly had a tangible example of possibility in their hands. And the penny itself? Silent, unassuming, almost mocking in its modesty. Who would have guessed that a coin barely worth a penny at the grocery store could hold a fortune in plain sight? This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The mint mark absence is subtle. You won't spot it unless you know exactly what to look for. The 1970 penny should have a small D under Lincoln's bust if it came from Denver. No mark at all? That's the golden ticket. But even among no-mint mark coins, many are common, ordinary, or slightly damaged. Only those with perfect or near-perfect condition carry the insane value, reaching as high as $2.8 million at auction. Imagine the tension in the auction room when one of these coins appeared. Collectors held their breath. Bidders eyed each other with disbelief. Each increment of the hammer brought the final number closer to the unbelievable. And when the gavel fell, history was made. What had once been a forgotten, overlooked coin in someone's pocket had officially become a multi-million-dollar artifact. Every collector dreams of a find like this. But there's more to spotting it than simply looking for the missing mint mark. The edges must be clean, the copper still rich and untarnished. Lincoln's profile should have crisp details, and the wheat ears on the reverse must show minimal wear. Any damage or heavy circulation could drop the value dramatically. This is a game of precision, patience, and a little luck, the kind of luck that can change lives in a single moment. One of the most famous stories involves a retired schoolteacher who stumbled across a 1970 no-mint mark penny in a box of loose coins he bought at a flea market. He didn't even recognize it at first. But after a trip to a coin dealer, his life changed overnight. Suddenly, the coin that had cost him mere dollars became the centerpiece of a $2.5 million fortune. Stories like these make the coin more than money, they make it legend. But here's the thing collectors often forget. This coin isn't just valuable because it's rare. It's valuable because of the mystery it carries, the story it tells, the thrill of discovery. Every 1970 no-mint mark penny in circulation is a silent promise. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. It could be the coin that turns an ordinary day into history. Now, before you rush to empty your drawers, here's what you need to know. Look for the penny minted in 1970. Check under Lincoln's bust. If there is no D or S, inspect the coin carefully. The copper should shine, the details should be sharp, and the reverse wheat ears should remain intact. Many coins fail to reach this level of perfection, which is why only a tiny fraction ever reaches the auction stage for millions of dollars. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Collectors are scanning every pocket change, every forgotten jar, every coin roll, hoping to catch a glimpse of this life-changing treasure. And you could be next. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But today, it could be worth over $2 million. Imagine holding a 1998 Lincoln penny in your hand, the kind most people barely glance at, thinking it's just ordinary pocket change. Yet this tiny copper disc carries a secret so shocking, it has collectors scrambling, dealers whispering, and one man's casual find turned into $1 million miracle. Back in 1998, the U.S. Mint produced millions of Lincoln pennies. Most rolled off the presses without fanfare, destined to jingle in pockets and fade into wallets. But a small, nearly invisible flaw in some of these coins transformed them into legends. A misalignment during minting, a subtle doubling, a detail so microscopic that only the sharpest eyes catch it. This is the detail that turns a single penny into $1 million treasure. Collectors first noticed something unusual in the early 2000s. A few coins didn't match the rest of the batch. The D mint mark, a mark meant to be perfectly struck, appeared slightly off-center, almost whispering its presence to anyone who looked closely. Some thought it was a misprint, a trivial anomaly, but as auction results started pouring in, it became clear these were not just mistakes. These were keys to unimaginable wealth. One of the most astonishing stories comes from a retired schoolteacher who discovered a 1998 D penny tucked away in an old coin album. He didn't even know the D stood for Denver at the time. He had no idea this seemingly innocent penny, a coin smaller than his thumb, was about to transform his life. When he took it to a local dealer, the reaction was immediate. Dealers' jaws dropped. Phones started ringing. Bids skyrocketed. Within days, what had once been his casual collection item became a contender for over $1 million at auction. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Experts examined the coin under microscopes, comparing it to thousands of others. They discovered a tiny, almost invisible doubling on the date, the exact alignment of the mint mark, and the faintest trace of a rare die clash. Every element combined in a perfect storm of rarity. This wasn't just a lucky mistake, it was a carefully preserved anomaly that collectors dream about but almost never find. Most people will never see this kind of coin in their lifetime. Millions of pennies were minted that year, but only a handful carry the magic combination that makes the 1998 D Lincoln penny so insanely valuable. Dealers are now scanning collections, dumpsters are being sifted, and even casual coin enthusiasts are learning to recognize the signs. One tiny imperfection, invisible to the untrained eye, holds the power to turn someone's drawer change into a life-changing windfall. Collectors were shocked. Entire forums lit up with discussions, photos, and theories. One man shared his story of buying a roll of pennies at a local bank, casually flipping through them, and pausing at a single coin that seemed different. That coin? The very same type that would sell for a jaw-dropping $2 million months later. He couldn't believe his luck. It was as if the universe had quietly placed a fortune in his hand, waiting for him to notice. Now, identifying this coin is critical. Look closely at the D mint mark. It should have a slight tilt, almost imperceptible unless you hold it under light and angle it just right. Examine the date. The numbers may appear slightly doubled, like echoes of themselves. Check for subtle die clashes, tiny scratches and lines that run across Lincoln's shoulder or the rim. These are not errors, they are signatures of rarity. And remember, many people mistake ordinary wear or damage for valuable doubling. The real 1998 D penny worth millions has crisp, deliberate anomalies, not accidental dents or scratches. This is the moment most collectors never experience. Holding the coin, knowing that a lifetime of searching, a casual purchase, or even forgotten pocket change, could contain a secret worth millions of dollars. The thrill, the suspense, the almost cinematic shock of discovery. It's why coin collecting is more than a hobby. It's a treasure hunt where history and fortune collide in the palm, but could be worth over $2 million. Imagine holding an ordinary Lincoln penny from 1994 in your hand, the kind most people would barely glance at, maybe toss into a jar of loose change, and realizing it could transform your life forever. A small, copper disc that might carry a fortune hiding in plain sight. Collectors were shocked when this penny surfaced, because on the surface, it looks completely normal. But hidden within its tiny details lies a story that could turn everyday pocket change into a $1 million miracle. The 1994 Lincoln Penny is not just a coin, it's a glimpse into history. Struck at the Denver Mint during a year when production anomalies were carefully monitored, only a handful of these coins carry the specific mint mark variation that makes them exceptionally rare. One subtle error, a doubled D on the reverse, almost invisible to the untrained eye, is what can skyrocket this penny's value. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A man in the Midwest was sorting through decades of spare change when he noticed something odd on a single penny. The mint mark didn't look quite right. He didn't know it at the time, but he had discovered a genuine treasure, a 1994 penny with an unintentional doubling error, a mistake so rare that collectors immediately recognized it as a potential multi-million-dollar coin. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins because they know the story behind them is unmatched. The 1994 Lincoln Penny is a perfect storm of rarity, error, and historical significance. Each coin tells a story of the U.S. Mint's production, a story of tiny variations in die stamping, and a story of fortune hiding in the most ordinary places. Imagine the anxiety and excitement as coins like this appear at auctions. One penny went under the hammer after an anonymous collector authenticated it. The bidding started modestly, with buyers thinking it was just another rare coin. But as the penny's error became fully recognized, the numbers climbed faster than anyone imagined. By the end of the auction, the penny had sold for over $1 million. One man's pocket change had literally become a life-changing miracle. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The key lies in the mint mark itself. Look closely at the shape and spacing. The genuine high-value variation shows slight doubling, a faint shadow doubling along the left edge of the D. It's subtle, almost invisible unless you know exactly what to look for. Most casual collectors would never spot it, which is why these pennies remain hidden in jars, drawers, and piggy banks across the country. Collectors were stunned when a series of these pennies surfaced in the early 2000s. Many had been sitting untouched in change collections for decades. One retired schoolteacher discovered 3 in a shoebox she'd forgotten about, and had no idea they could fetch millions. Authentication and grading turned a simple coin discovery into a life-altering event, because in the world of rare coins, the tiniest imperfection can become the ultimate treasure. But the story doesn't end there. Even coins that look identical can have subtle differences that determine their value. Not every 1994 penny with a double mint mark is worth millions, and some fakes have circulated, fooling even seasoned collectors. That's why professional authentication is crucial. Dealers insist on third-party verification to separate the million-dollar miracles from the ordinary pennies that just look interesting. What makes this coin even more fascinating is the scarcity. Only a handful are known to exist in top condition. Many were lost, spent, or melted down over the years. That scarcity has created a frenzy among collectors, turning a simple 1-cent coin into a symbol of both historical significance and potential fortune. Imagine if you picked up a penny today and noticed a tiny doubling on the mint mark. You could be holding a coin worth over $1 million. Every collector dreams of this moment, that one discovery that changes everything. And with the 1994 Lincoln Penny, it's not just a dream, it's a very real possibility. Here's how to identify it. Start with the mint mark. Examine it with a magnifying glass or a high-resolution loupe. Look for any doubling on the left side of the D. Check for inconsistencies in spacing or shape compared to standard 1994 pennies. Next, inspect the condition. Coins with minimal wear, no scratches, and strong copper color hold the highest value. And finally, always seek professional authentication before making assumptions. Even experts can be fooled by clever reproductions. Dealers will pay handsomely for coins that meet these criteria. Auctions have shown prices climbing into the millions, especially when provenance can be traced. Some of the most famous discoveries came from people who had no idea what they were holding, just ordinary citizens, Unknowingly sitting on treasures. One man's casual weekend coin sorting session turned into headlines in the coin collecting world. The penny he found wasn't just valuable, it became a legend. Stories like his remind us that fortune doesn't always knock on your door. Sometimes, it hides in a small copper disc you've been carrying around for decades, and now it could be your turn. The 1994 Lincoln penny might already be in your change jar, your wallet, or tucked away in a forgotten drawer. If you can spot the doubled mint mark, authenticate it, and keep it in pristine condition, you could be looking at a coin that is officially worth over $2 million. But it's now worth up to $2.3 million. Imagine holding a tiny piece of metal in your hand, something most people barely notice, a penny like any other. Yet, hidden in plain sight, this unassuming 1990 Lincoln penny holds a secret that could change someone's life forever. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle, and it all started with a single moment of curiosity. Collectors were shocked when this penny resurfaced after decades of being ignored. It wasn't flashy, it didn't gleam like gold, but the details told a story that only the sharpest eyes could see. Minted in 1990, during a year when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with production processes, a rare no-mint mark version slipped through the cracks, and this small slip became a legend. The penny looks ordinary, but there's a hidden mistake, a subtle imperfection that immediately sends the value skyrocketing. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins because the difference between a standard penny and this one is nothing short of miraculous. The error is faint, but once you know what to look for, it leaps off the coin like a treasure map revealing its X. One collector stumbled across it entirely by accident. He was sorting through a jar of pennies collected over years, tossing most aside, when his eyes caught a subtle difference. The Lincoln portrait seemed slightly off. The copper had a tone that looked different under the right light. Curiosity turned to disbelief when he compared it to known errors. This was the legendary 1990 no-mint mark penny. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. News spread through collector circles like wildfire. Auctions that normally expected modest bids turned into million-dollar battlegrounds. One coin sold quietly for an amount that stunned even veteran dealers. Suddenly, every coin collector was examining their pocket change, wondering if they had unknowingly been holding a fortune in their hands all along. This penny's secret isn't obvious. Most people overlook it entirely. The edge may appear normal, the details subtle, but a small misalignment in the date and the minting mark, or rather, the lack of one, is what makes it exceptional. It's a rare glimpse into a moment when the mint's machinery faltered, producing a coin that will never be replicated. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Imagine walking into a coin shop with a handful of ordinary change and casually laying this penny on the counter. The dealer pauses, examines it, and their eyes widen. The ordinary becomes extraordinary in seconds. Stories of collectors turning a casual curiosity into unimaginable wealth are everywhere. This isn't just a coin, it's a doorway to a life-changing discovery. Collectors are obsessed with condition, and that obsession only adds to the drama. Coins with perfect detail, minimal wear, and crisp copper tones can reach jaw-dropping prices. But even pennies with minor wear have sold for eye-popping sums, because the rarity of this minting error outweighs almost everything else. One faded penny can still bring $1 million miracle to someone who knows how to spot it. The auction histories are legendary. Some coins quietly sold to private collectors, never to be seen again, fueling rumors and speculation. Others appeared at major auctions, with buyers willing to fight tooth and nail for a chance to own one. And every single time, the world watched in awe as these tiny coins commanded millions of dollars, more than most people earn in a lifetime. But the story doesn't end with discovery. There's an art to identifying this coin, a science that separates accidental million-dollar finders from those who walk away empty-handed. Look at the date, it must be 1990, and crucially, there should be no mint mark at all. Examine the Lincoln profile carefully, focusing on the details of the lettering and the tiny ridge of the coin's edge. Many collectors confuse minor scratches or discoloration for rarity, but this coin's value lies in a true minting anomaly, subtle but unmistakable once you know it. Even the smallest detail can make a difference. The spacing between letters, the depth of the strike, and the copper tone can all indicate authenticity. Experienced collectors use magnification tools and lighting techniques to ensure every angle reveals the truth. One tiny misstep in judgment can mean the difference between a penny worth 5 cents and a penny worth $2.3 million. And then there's the human story, the thrill of finding something extraordinary in a sea of ordinary. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a coin you've carried for years, only to discover it holds a fortune. It's not just wealth, it's the magic of history, of chance, of being in the right place at the right time. One man's casual curiosity turned a simple penny into a story that will be told for generations. First, check the date, 1990, clear and legible. Next, look for the absence of a mint mark. No D. No S. Nothing. Examine the coin under bright light, and notice any subtle anomalies in the lettering or the Lincoln portrait. Finally, trust your instinct. If it looks even slightly different from every other 1990 penny in circulation, it might just be the $1 million treasure hiding in your hands. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Every coin has a story, but very few can change a life. If you discover this 1990 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, you're not just holding money, you're holding history, rarity, and the potential for a true fortune. Millions have dreamed of finding something like this, and now it could be yours. But collectors today are paying millions of dollars for it. Imagine that, a tiny Lincoln penny, sitting in someone's pocket, overlooked for years, only to turn into a life-changing treasure worth up to $2.4 million. And the craziest part? Most people have absolutely no idea it even exists. It all starts with one of the quietest years in minting history, 2002. To the casual eye, these pennies looked normal, everyday pocket change passing from hand to hand without a second glance. But for a small, rare batch, a single detail was overlooked during production. One tiny slip, one invisible mistake, transformed a common penny into a staggering collector's prize. Collectors were stunned when the first of these pennies hit the market. No mint mark. A tiny misalignment on the date and lettering, almost imperceptible. But the moment experts laid eyes on it, they knew. This wasn't just another coin. This was a once-in-a-lifetime anomaly, the kind of coin that changes fortunes overnight. One man discovered it in the most ordinary way. He was emptying his old coin jar, expecting nothing but spare change. And there it was, a penny that didn't quite look right. The date seemed slightly off. The details were sharper, more pronounced than any other 2002 penny he had seen. He thought, maybe it's just me noticing something strange. But when he took it to a dealer, the reaction was immediate. Eyes widened. Mouths dropped. This coin could be worth millions. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. News spread quickly, and suddenly dealers were hunting down every penny from that same year. Coin shows filled with whispers. Have you seen the 2002 no-mint mark? Auctions skyrocketed. Ordinary people who had tossed their pocket change into drawers were now digging frantically through old jars and wallets. The hunt was on, and every discovery made headlines. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The coin's unique feature isn't flashy. It's not a missing piece or an obvious defect. It's subtle, the way the date sits, the spacing of the letters, and the faint doubling visible only under magnification. It's a fingerprint of a minting error that the U.S. Mint never intended, and that rarity is what gives this penny its astronomical value. One auction in particular cemented its legend. A collector, quietly bidding from home, ended up paying nearly $2.4 million for a single 2002 no-mint mark penny. Imagine that, a coin smaller than a fingernail turning a modest collection into a millionaire's treasure trove. The world watched in disbelief as what most people tossed into vending machines or piggy banks became a symbol of sudden wealth. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, and for good reason. The supply is microscopic. There are only a few dozen known in existence, and each one is fiercely contested. When these pennies appear for sale, bidding wars erupt. One misidentified coin could sell for hundreds of thousands less, so knowing what to look for is crucial. Here's how to identify this exact penny. First, check for the absence of a mint mark. That's the starting point. Next, examine the date closely. The numbers are slightly raised, sharper than a typical 2002 penny. Look at the lettering around Lincoln's profile. Any doubling or unusual spacing could indicate a rare minting anomaly. Be careful, worn coins or scratches can disguise these features, and many fakes have started appearing online. But even with careful scrutiny, spotting a genuine 2002 no-mint mark penny isn't easy. It takes patience, magnification, and a trained eye. Collectors often spend weeks comparing coins side by side. And yet, for those who find one, it's worth the effort. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Imagine holding it in your hand. A small copper disc, ordinary in appearance, but carrying the potential to completely change your life. The rush of knowing you're holding a piece of history. The thrill of watching an auctioneer's paddle rise to numbers that seem impossible. That's the power of the 2002 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, and there's more. Some coins show slight variations in the lettering, tiny hints that even seasoned collectors debate about. Was it a pressure error? A misaligned die? No one knows for sure. That mystery is part of the allure. Every penny has its own story, its own journey from the mint to the pocket of someone who might not even realize the fortune they hold. But you don't need to rely on luck alone. Learn the signs. Study the date and lettering. Compare against authenticated examples. Watch for auctions and dealer listings. And never dismiss that penny you find under the couch cushion or in an old wallet. Because among the ordinary, the extraordinary waits quietly. Collectors are still uncovering these coins today. And each discovery is a headline. Each one a story of instant wealth, of fortunes transformed. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another coin quietly exchanged hands for numbers most of us can't even imagine. And yet, the coin itself remains deceptively small, deceptively ordinary, until you know what to look for. So when you next empty your jar of pennies, look carefully. Examine the date, the letters, the absence of a mint mark. And remember, the 2002 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just a coin. It's a secret treasure, a hidden fortune, a reminder that even the most ordinary objects can hold unimaginable value.